Media's Mining Weekly is speaking to Nico Muller, the CEO of Implats. Nico, it's great to chat to you. In South Africa, what we need at the moment are jobs, jobs and more jobs. And not long ago, we sat here listening to possibilities of major retrenchment that was going to come out of mine closures in your group. And fantastically, through deep, steep activities, you've turned this around. How is it happening, and how many jobs are you going to save?
So Martin, let me just firstly point out, at the time that we came with the restructuring of Rustenburg, and we spoke about 13,000 jobs, it is not a decision that we took lightly at the time. We understood the position of the country, the unemployment position, but if anything, we want Implats to be known as a decisive company. And for decades we spoke about industry discipline, and it's a view that we support. You know, to the extent that we are not making money, we, and if you look at the negative cash flows and the quantum of it at the time, it was dramatic, and it would have brought the company to its knees. So it was very deliberate and decisive action, notwithstanding all of the social implications. And we are just absolutely delighted, first of all, that the market has turned, and I think there has been industry discipline. If I look at the number of closures on the eastern limb and even on the western limb, that has contributed to this, and for that I have to applaud the industry. And then, of course, I have to thank our labour, our leadership in Rustenburg. They've done an outstanding job. If I look at the turnaround that we've made at our two big producing shafts, 12 and 14, and how they've turned around the corner, and not through applying more resources, more funds, through productivity improvements. We have seen 12 and 14, the shafts that were earmarked for closure because of profitability concerns, that are now producing at the same cost level as our core shafts. And so even if prices remained where they were, those shafts would have been economical. And of course now with the buoyant metal prices, it's turned around. So we are delighted that we probably have saved 10,000 jobs. And when I say we, I'm talking about the leadership of the company. I'm talking about every employee that's working for the company. I'm talking about our organized labor who represent our employees. They have been phenomenal in the support that they have provided and the leadership that they have introduced into our company. We signed a 3-year wage deal without any business disruption. I've thanked Joseph personally, that they've done a great job. And I think also, let's not forget the role of the state that they've played. They've guided us, and I think we are just delighted that we have survived and prospered at the back end. And we're talking about the 10,000 jobs, but in addition to that, our host communities, the Bafokeng, we're talking about the socio-economic input, the fact that we were able to invest 94 million rand in further housing development. We spent 36 million on social projects, which was a significant increase from the previous year. So we are delighted for the company, for all of our stakeholders, and for the country.
And you've always been associated here with the deep and the dark, and you had new aspirations to go into less risky, lower cost, mechanized operations, and you have been looking at the Waterberg, but something sprung up far more in place, and that was in Canada. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it may have surprised the market when we did the announcement during the past 6 months, but we actually have been looking at Canada since 2017. So it was actually a long journey, and if we had the financial resources, we probably would have acquired the asset at that time. But our financial muscle was depleted at the time. The advantages of NAP, besides the fact that it's low cost, it's mechanized, it employs only less than 1,000 people. I think there are 800 people employed at the mine, of which 200 are underground at the most at any one time. The other advantages is that it is a cash generative asset. Our transaction cost was 10.9 billion, but at the date of acquisition, we had $100 million that we acquired with the purchase. So the fact that it was in operation, it was cash generative, that was very attractive, and and of course we had a very strong belief and confidence in the medium-term outlook for palladium, so that assisted us. So we are also excited about the Waterberg, and because again it is mechanized, low cost, we believe from a safety point of view it's the kind of asset that we would like to have. The only difference between the Waterberg and Lac des Iles is that this is a long lead project. It requires significant cash flow before you start generating revenue. So your investment has got a much higher peak and it's over a much longer term. And so what bears on the mind in those decisions is the long-term outlook. And so you have to predict the markets that will prevail in from 7 years forward in order to make that decision. So that weighs far more on our minds than perhaps a near cash or cash generating asset.
One of the wonderful things about platinum mining is that platinum group metals mining, and you have a situation where one's down, the other one's up. And we've had tremendous performance of palladium and rhodium, but in the old days, when prices used to spike like that, people used to shiver and shake a bit because they thought there would be substitution. But it seems with climate change now, people are just so concerned about meeting all the emission controls that they're just going full steam ahead, and the price of palladium and rhodium doesn't seem to be lessening at this stage. But wouldn't it be good to be able to balance with platinum? Isn't it good for the whole industry, for the whole world, if we can put in some more platinum and substitute the palladium perhaps with the platinum?
Yeah, Martin, I absolutely agree with you, and I've heard Chris and Neil and several CEOs of the industry speak about this. And the fact of the matter is there are PGMs. They are sufficient to provide the world with the demand that the world requires. So I think as an industry, we did not do ourselves justice during the Volkswagen scandal when we were caught out and not complying to the emission standards. Because the technologies are there, we can and we should not take any shortcuts. As a consequence of the negative perceptions and the fines that are in place these days, there is a much greater reluctance to switch regularly. I think what the world perhaps don't know is the amount of research and development that is going into the development of alternate catalytic converters and alternative mixers. And I think that I'm looking forward to announcements coming out over the next months and perhaps even shorter about the emergence of the potential for back substitution of platinum back into catalytic converters. I think it will happen, but it has to happen in a cautious way so that whenever we produce a new catalytic converter to ensure that we comply to the emission standards, that the entire world has got faith that it will do the job as designed. And so I personally, I support the cautious approach, and I look forward to the new emerging technologies that will see substitution and getting demand more in balance with the supply.
When I used to talk to the platinum industry in the old days, they just used to talk about marketing, and more marketing. We know that jewelry can move, but there's coronavirus now. I don't see people probably moving through jewelry shops in great numbers with the coronavirus. But what are we doing on the marketing front? Are we really planning to look long-term here? Because we've got great autocats, but autocats could be taken up by a battery electric vehicle. Are we trying to get into batteries? What are we doing? Are we going with the hydrogen economy in the long term? Do you see that having traction?
Martin, I think that the industry is doing a tremendous amount of work, which perhaps is not published. We've got various industry forums. We've got the PGI. We've got through the IPA we've got diesel advocacy groups. We are talking to influential policymakers in Europe that had initially banned either diesel engines or internal combustion engines, either in entire cities or in sections of cities. As an industry, we are collectively sponsoring a lot of the research and development to develop a new technology. We've got a very active, through the PGI, marketing strategy for jewelry, and of course Anglo's doing a whole lot on their own in India. So I think that the industry is very aware that our future does not only lie in cost optimization of the supply, but that we have to create demand. And I think each company in the space is doing a tremendous amount of work to promote alternative future demands for our metals.
And swinging back to what a clean industry that you promote cleanness around the world, you need to be clean yourself, and you also have the situation of energy at the moment. What are you contemplating on the energy front, and how could you become greener and cleaner?
Thank you for that, Martin. With regards to what Implats has done so far, in Zimbabwe, as you may be aware, we are totally reliant on power generation from the Kabaso water scheme. So all of our power there is renewable energy. So that's probably the cleanest platinum being produced on the planet at the moment. In addition to that, in Zimbabwe we are in the midst of a feasibility study to evaluate the construction of a 200 megawatt solar power plant, and that will provide not only the 80 megawatt of power requirements at Zimplats, but also the 30 megawatts that we use at Mimosa, and then there is a sufficient amount of energy to feed into the grid as a broader in-country strategy. As you know, in South Africa we set out 16 hectares and we are collaborating with various partners to develop technology for hydrogen fuel cells, and so I think you'll probably in South Africa hear us talk in the next 12 to 18 months about our own plans for renewable energy beyond the hydrogen fuel cells. That may very well include prospective solar plants as well.